I think you need to get super clear on who it is you want to help and think about who is your ideal client and then create a client avatar. So by that, I mean, where do they live? What do they do for a living? And then importantly, what is the problem that they want solved? And I call that Hell Island. So imagine that your client is on Hell Island. What does Hell Island look like? What's the problem? And then what is the outcome that they want as a result of the coaching? And I call that Heaven Island, right? So what does that look like? Imagine you put them on a boat and they go from Hell Island to Heaven Island. And you think, right, what does that boat journey look like?
I'll make it as a coach, light the spark inside, empower every soul to turn the tide. I'll make it as a coach, help others grow, changing lives with every story I know.
When I started with the making of a coach, I wanted to build a resource that helps you with all these questions beyond the actual session. I wanted to tackle questions like, how do I find clients? Should I niche my coaching practice? How much can I actually charge? How long will this whole business building process take me until I can live from it? And when I met today's guest, Lucy, for our prep conversation, she said that she actually has a FAQ, frequently asked questions list with exactly these kinds of questions. She has this list because next to her own career coaching practice, she also trains coaches at Animas, a large academy in the UK. So on this episode, we dig into these frequently asked questions, tackling question by question on the one hand on business aspects, but later also on the actual practice and coaching conversation. I try to tame my curiosity today and not go too much into sidetracks. So what came out of this is a super information-dense episode with a really authentic and relatable Lucy. So let's get started, firstly, by getting to know Lucy a bit. In order to get us started, I found that a good question is, who's your typical client and what challenge do you usually help them with?
Okay. My typical client is somebody in their 35 to 55 age bracket, is a mother, but also wants a fulfilling career. And what I've helped them with is this sort of struggle that most women have, which is, how do I do both? How do I be the mother I want to be and have a fulfilling career where I achieve my ambitions and my potential? And when I say, how do I do both? There's lots of issues underneath that come up for women that we might explore and unpack and hopefully resolve. So yeah.
So that also sounds very mission driven. How did you arrive at this mission personally?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I never really thought of myself as someone like that when I was younger. Through the process of becoming a mother myself, I saw the struggles that my friends went through and the struggles that I went through. And I saw a real opportunity to help those women. I remember saying to myself, who is it that I want to help? And the way to know that is by who is it that I feel like when I imagine them feel emotional and like I'm going to cry. And it was always lonely mothers that made me want to cry. And it still really touches me now. Like thinking about a new mum, maybe, or somebody with older children, but just a woman who feels really alone in the world and never used to, and doesn't really, and has lost themselves a bit and doesn't really know who they are anymore. And I sort of saw all that wasted potential in women. And it really frustrated me. And I thought, right, that's who I want to have. I think that women are not helped enough. They don't get enough support these days. But yeah, that's that. It is mission driven. Yeah. Yeah.
And out of that also came your career change coaching program, which I think we'll dig into a bit more later.
Mhm.
Next to that, you also train coaches, right?
Yes.
Can you talk to us a bit about that?
Yeah. So that was never in the vision. One of those things in life that you get sort of offered the opportunity and you think, oh my God, I can't do that. And then you think, well, I've got to say yes to this because it's, I've got to give it a go. And who am I as a coach if I don't take these opportunities? That's ridiculous. So I launched into it and I've been doing it now for 2 years, and I coach 2 cohorts a month. So 24 people a month. And it's a diploma in transformative coaching, and it runs over 6 months, and it's online. And honestly, talking to my supervisor about it, because she went through the nightmare of me having imposter syndrome and all of that, and she was trying to encourage me, and we regularly reflect on the journey I've been on now in terms of my initial hesitancy. And now it's actually one of the things I most enjoy about my business, and I'm actually really good at it. Like, I get really good feedback, and you can hear in my voice I'm quite surprised by that, because I never thought I could do it, but actually I am really good at it, and it feels good to say that, to acknowledge that that's a new skill that I have learned from scratch, that I love and find very fulfilling and I'm good at. So yeah, it's great.
And what's the journey these people that you train on are on? Are they new coaches that train to become transformative coaches, or how does that program look like?
Yeah, exactly. They are. They're new coaches. So they tend to be either people who are in big corporate organizations, maybe in learning development or HR, and their companies are paying for them to become an accredited coach so that they can then be an internal coach in their businesses as that client. And then there's also people who are just individuals, which is a bit like what I was when I trained. And they're thinking, I want a change of career and I want to become a coach. So they paid for it themselves, and they, obviously have invested in that financially and energy and time wise. So the journey they go on, they are learning the skill of coaching, but I would say even more importantly, they are transforming themselves throughout the course. So that's often a surprise to people. They think they're going on a course and they're going to learn how to coach. And they are, but they're also, what they notice is a paradigm shift. They actually feel like a very different person at the end of the course. They've had a lot of coaching themselves, so they've been coached a lot, but also the content that we go through and unpack together offers them a different perspective on life, I would say, a different way of being in life, which I find incredibly exciting to take people through. So yeah.
Super interesting. So they come to learn a craft, and then of course with that comes tremendous own personal development and going through this transformation yourself. That is always part of becoming someone who helps others to have that transformation.
Exactly. I think there's something about, as coaches, we need to have done the work ourselves to be credible. And part of that work is in the course, but part of that work is outside of the course as well. It's on reflection, supervision, practicing, reading, taking part in continuous professional development, all of that. It's an ongoing journey. As a coach, you have to constantly be growing, personally, professionally, I think, in order to be the best coach you can be.
Yeah. And when we previously chatted about that, you also said, well, there is a lot of frequently asked questions that come up in this coach training that you're doing there. And I thought that would be really cool to unpack in a condensed way.
Yeah.
So let's actually hop into that and go into these questions.
Okay, so we're going to do it like a kind of quick fire round, and I'll just answer them as succinctly as I can.
Yeah. If you want to elaborate a bit more on one or the other, that's also fine. But I'll keep my questions short and not dig deeper. So I will try to tame my curiosity to not ask follow-up questions, but we'll go through the FAQ.
Okay, cool.
Okay, how do I find clients?
This is a huge question, and it's probably the most common question that I get. I think you need to get super clear on who it is you want to help. So a bit like I did with the test of the emotions, like who is it that I feel needs the most help, for instance, and think about who is your ideal client, and then create a client avatar. So by that, I mean, where do they live? What do they do for a living? How do they spend their free time? Are they married? Are they single? Do they have kids? How old are they? What's their gender, their race, their socioeconomic status? What do they earn? How much would they spend on coaching? And then importantly, what is the problem that they want solved? Okay. And I call that Hell Island. So imagine your client is on Hell Island. What does Hell Island look like? What's the problem? And then what is the outcome that they want as a result of the coaching? And I call that Heaven Island, right? So what does that look like? Imagine you put them on a boat and they go from Hell Island to Heaven Island, and you think, right, what does that boat journey look like? And that's the journey you take them on. Is it one-to-one? Is it group? Is it structured? Is it directive? Is it non-directive? And why should they work with you rather than someone else? And what experience they're going to get with you that they don't get with someone else? What are they going to gain from working with you? And then thinking about marketing. So where do they hang out? Is it LinkedIn? Is it Instagram? Is it in the local tennis club? Think about how you're actually going to get to them. And then think about as well what marketing channels you're comfortable with. So don't start doing Instagram lives if you can't stand the thought of that. And you would much rather do blogging or going to an event or something. So really look within yourselves. And I would say referrals. So just focus on quality coaching, doing the best work you can. And then eventually you will start to get referrals from those people. And then finally, I would say just stay in your own lane, block out the noise, because you don't want to get distracted by what other people are doing. So if you want to find clients, stay in your own lane. And then that's if you want to start up your own business, but you could also be an associate coach. You could be an internal coach. You could also work with a business coach to help you. So yeah, there's lots of options there, hopefully. That would be my approach.
So what I heard was, who is my client? On what Hell Island are they? And how do I help them to get off? And then finding ways to communicate that you are comfortable with. And what I also heard is that most likely the most powerful closing channel will be referrals from happy clients.
In my experience, that's where I get my clients. But I took a long time to do that beginning bit, that building of my brand through Hell Island, Heaven Island, talking to my clients, building up my personal brand in the marketplace. But then now I don't really do that, and I just rely on referrals.
How long will that take me? What is my business trajectory? How quickly can I substitute my corporate salary with that sort of work?
So I would say, because it's going to be different for everybody, for me, I don't think there's enough honesty out there about how long this takes personally. For me, and certainly for a lot of my friends, it took 4 years. So 4 years of me working part-time around my children. And then as soon as I hit that kind of replacement, I replaced that corporate salary. It's kind of continued to go up because I've built that solid foundation of my business. My advice would be, don't listen to the kind of noise out there that says you can be earning 100 grand in 6 months after you do this training course. Just doesn't happen in my experience.
Yeah. So 4 years of hustling where you sort of slowly ramp up to the salary maybe that you used to have.
Yeah.
But then afterwards, the upward path also goes on beyond what you possibly had before.
Exactly. So I'm now earning more. It's probably, I think, 20% more than I was earning in corporate. And I've got a huge amount of flexibility and fulfillment and all those good things. So I would say just be patient, but also maybe factor that in financially. So you might want to be having some savings getting through those first few years that you might need to delve into. I think the statistics at the moment are something like 87% of all coaching businesses fail this last year. And I think a lot of that is because people don't have a financial buffer.
Should I niche? Marketing people tell me I should.
Yeah, so marketing people will say you need to niche. My experience is that you don't have to, that actually you are the niche. So something I didn't quite realize before I started this new career was that I am the business. It might sound obvious, but I didn't get it. for a while that I am the business, I am the niche. Nobody coaches like me. Nobody is me. I am unique. And that's enough. That can be enough. If you've got a very strong personal brand, you can go out and say, I'm a coach and I can coach anybody. You may be like me and think, actually, no, there is a particular sector of society that I do want to help. And therefore, it might serve you better to niche and to tailor your marketing that particular client avatar. Yeah. So it depends, really. I would say, I don't think you have to, but it might be helpful.
And if I can challenge you on that one a bit. Now you are talking to me as Lucy the coach trainer. But if I look at Lucy the coach, you might not have perceived it that way. But isn't your strong focus on women who have ambitious career goals, and that also being your own history in a way, isn't that a niche?
Yes. Yeah, I have niched. Definitely. Yeah. Yes. So I've taken my individualism, my journey as a human being, and I've turned that into my expertise and my niche. So a lot of my clients, and I've only learned this through experience, a lot of my clients come to me because of my personal experience of motherhood. And so I've used that to my advantage.
Yeah. So you didn't niche because marketing people told you so, but just because you have this strong sense of purpose in this one area of life and society in a way.
Exactly.
And through that, it came naturally, I would say.
Yes. Yes.
How do I step into that business world and sell myself? Even though I'm a helper, I'm not a salesperson.
I know. Yeah. So lots of my new coaches, the new coaches that I train, they've gone into coaching because they want to help people. And a lot of them are people pleasers and they want to serve others, help others, etc. And that often contradicts the need when you are a coach to sell yourself. They find it very, very uncomfortable. How do you do that? I think you have to work in your business and on your business at all times. So I would say 80% of your time should be spent in your business earning money, and 20% should be spent on the business. And then how do you sell yourself when you're not a salesperson? You find your way with it. So I don't see myself as a salesperson. I think it's really icky and horrible. I have found a way to do sales in a very hands-off way, unpressurized. This is what I offer. Take it or leave it. Come back to me if you want to have conversations. And I found my way with it, but it took a while, took 2 years to really get it nailed. And so I would trust that you will find your own way, but you just got to keep trying and experimenting with different ways of doing it. I think the word that I want to say, but I feel is so overused, but it's authentic. It's like finding your authentic way of selling. And I think there's a bit of a reframe for me as well in this around you're not selling, you're offering a service that they actually need. So you are helping them by selling. Does that make sense? If they don't work with you, they're not going to achieve what they want to achieve. So it's getting your head around that, I think.
Yeah. If you wouldn't have said it, I would have also used the word authenticity is what I really can see. And this authenticity, like standing there with your own story, I think also gives you visibility. So you are already visible. And then it's mostly about talking about your offers. So it's not, you should buy this. It's more like, look, this is my story and this is what I do with it today. Do you want to talk?
Exactly. Yeah.
How much should I charge?
So I'm afraid there's no right answer to this, but it is, I've got clients who are coaches and we will often spend 2 or 3 sessions on this subject. It's a big, big topic for coaches. If you look at the ICF figures, I think the rates are kind of generally between £30 an hour and at the top end about £450 an hour. And those top end ones tend to be executive coaches. They tend to be being paid for by corporates. I would say you've got to think about who your ideal client is. Okay, so how much can they afford? There's no good going for stay-at-home mums who haven't got a job and trying to charge them £300 an hour because that's what you need to pay your bills. So you've got to think about when you're doing your ideal client work, part of that is how much money do I need to earn? And do these people earn that? Yeah, so that comes into play. Something about your experience, I think, your confidence that you can achieve the outcome that the client wants. So I personally feel the more experience you have and the more kind of continuous professional development you've done and the more tools and theories and stuff that you know, the more supervision you've had, the more mental coaching you've had, the more you can charge. To give you an idea, when I first started training, I was charging £5 for an hour. I then, when I qualified, went up to £30 an hour when I was qualified. Then it took me ages to go up to £60 an hour for some reason. I think it was due to my confidence. And then I remember having some business coaching and they basically said, you're really undercharging, a bit of a wake-up call. So then I went up to £80, then £100, and now I'm at £250 an hour. So that's in 7 years. It's taken me to kind of go to that. And I'm comfortable with where I'm at. So, and again, it depends on who I'm coaching. I actually know somebody, I love her, Claire Pedrick, a sort of well-known coach in the coaching world. And what she says is, I will charge you what you can afford. So if you were earning £17,000, I will charge you £30 an hour. If you're earning £500,000 a year, I will charge you £250 an hour. So she has like a sliding scale, which I think is quite a nice way of doing it. Actually, it feels quite ethical. Yeah. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. So it's a range.
Yeah.
That's what I hear.
Good,
Quite a range, actually.
Yeah.
And of course, similar to the business trajectory in general, probably also similar to the number of clients.
Yeah.
It continues to go up, possibly.
Yes, exactly. Potentially, yes. Someone like Tony Robbins, he's not a qualified coach. He doesn't have accreditation. He charges £1 million an hour. Michael Serwa, he doesn't have any qualifications. He charges £20,000 an hour. You can charge what you want.
Yeah, I think if I think of Tony Robbins, then what I guess he earns the most money with, it's also these. It's not even coaching anymore. It's group programs, and that's of course also another screw that you can squeeze, or what do you do with screw? You turn it. Another screw that you can turn.
Yeah.
Either you have you have many people, and then you have sort of a group program.
Yeah.
Where you can charge also lower ticket sizes.
Exactly.
Or it's like this very exclusive setting.
Exactly. Yeah. So there are lots of different options. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Can I coach people I already know?
Yeah, this is an interesting one. And I think the question that coaches need to ask themselves is, am I providing an environment for the coachee in which they can do their highest quality thinking? If we think as a coach, actually me knowing them and having information on them is going to pollute the space with a bias, with a judgment, then arguably we're not the best coach for them, because really in a coaching space, it needs to be non-judgmental. I'd say that with kind of quotation marks, because we are judgment making machines as humans, right? So we can't have no judgment in the space. But if I'm coaching my brother-in-law, I just couldn't coach it because I just know too much about him. I would just be very muddy. I find it a lot easier to coach people I've never met. So I think that's the question. You can coach people that you know, but you need to be careful about polluting the space with bias, because the client is the priority. They deserve a space to think and have their highest quality thinking. And if you are getting in the way of that with your relationship, then it may be that they're suited to someone else, better suited to someone else. So it depends on the relationship. I've coached friends of friends. I've coached mums at the school gates. I've coached people locally that I sort of know, but nobody that I know well. Oh, I have got a caveat to that. I do peer coaching. So I do have peers of mine, coaches, who we coach each other and we do know each other quite well. But it's contracted around that. It's kind of coach mentoring often. So yeah, I'll be quiet.
Supervision, maybe you could call it.
A little bit of supervision in coaching. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, makes sense. So you start with like your second row circle in a way, friends of friends, colleagues of colleagues in a way.
Yeah, so I always say to people that are looking for practice clients, that's the best. They're the best people. Friends of friends, colleagues of colleagues, because then they're likely to match you well. They're going to kind of see something in both of you that would make a good relationship, but you've never met that person. They are good people to start with. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you know now that you wish you'd known when you started? That's a broad question, but I would say to close off our last 20 minutes, maybe let's refer that to the whole business building aspect.
I know now, it sounds boring. It's the infrastructure. So if somebody could have given me the infrastructure I would have needed to, the systems and things to create a very smooth running business at the start, that would have been really helpful. But it took me quite a long time to kind of work that all out and work out how to save time and which systems to invest in and all of that. So I think I wish I've known that.
What do you have in mind when you say systems? Can you give an example?
Yeah, things like, have you heard of Calendly?
Mhm.
Yes. So something like that. I didn't put that in because I thought, I can't really afford that. And I didn't do that for about 3 years. But if I could do it all on email, like, when can you make this next session? It was, really time consuming. And actually what I realized is Calendly just makes you look a lot more professional. It all works. I don't ever have to deal with cancellations. The client can just manage it all. So things like that. Then also something like Xero, the accounting software. I wish I'd done that sooner, because that just gives you all your reporting, does it all for me. So those two are probably the main ones.
Accounting software and for scheduling.
Yeah.
What else are the building blocks of your system these days?
My website works fairly hard. So I tried regularly put blogs on to create the SEO, get traction. And then on my website, you can book a free exploratory call. So that tends to work quite well. I have a system in there as well where before somebody books a call with me, they have to answer certain questions to check that they're the right fit. So I put in there that my minimum package is £1,200, for instance, so that if they can't afford that, they can say, actually, I'm not going to meet with you. So it sort of stops any time wasting. And I ask them how committed they are to making a change so that I get a real sense. And also they've done a sense check before they see me. And I ask them about what is it they want to get out of coaching and why haven't they made this change on their own? So I get them to do a bit of thinking before, which helps me in that first session. Zoom is a game changer. I think that's it.
Anything where you actually visualize sessions? Is that just a Zoom conversation or are you using any whiteboard or online coaching tools?
No, I don't actually. I'm very pure coaching, just conversations. In my training, I use an iPad and I share my iPad slides on the screen and within Zoom, but not in my actual coaching. No, I'd love to hear more because I know that you've got some that you could probably share with me I could use.
Yeah, we are building a suite for online coaching that's easier to use than Miro or any of the infinite whiteboard spaces.
Yeah.
And that also gives you picture cards and all of that basically one click away.
That would be amazing.
So I'm also coming a bit from that would be amazing. Now that I'm asking, you say that would be amazing, but you've also never Googled for something like that, it sounds like.
But that's why I haven't, because it's not easy. I think these things have to be really easy. So if somebody gave me a free trial and said, right, have a go with this, see if you like it, I'd probably do it, but I wouldn't go actively and look for it because none of my clients have said they need it yet. When I'm training people on values, for instance, core values, I will often say you can get values cards out there that you can use and you can get strengths cards and needs cards and all these things. But if you're doing it virtually, you've got to think about how you're going to do it. How do you do that? That's really hard, right? So yeah, I suppose my brain hasn't gone to the point of, I'll go and find a solution for that. But it'd be great if there was one.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, I'll take note of that. Awesome. With that, let's maybe close the business Q&A and let's have another round focusing on the actual coaching process.
Okay.
So again, I'll hop into my shoes of an aspiring coach and I'll ask you a set of questions about the actual practice. Okay. What do I do when my client arrives with just some vague thoughts and emotions and no clear issue, no clear goal in mind?
Mm-hmm. It's interesting, this one, isn't it? Because if we are client-led, why does it matter? Because they're coming and we're saying, okay, that's interesting that you've come up with this vague thing. And that is something you can do. You can say, oh, I'm really noticing there's a vagueness to what you're sharing here. What comes up for you when I share that with you? What are the consequences of us staying in this vague space? Is this something you want, or would you like to get clearer? So you could go into it in that way. But I also think there's something here about your responsibility as a coach. So you are not a therapist. So in therapy, in my experience, you go into a therapy session and they might ask you, how are you? And you can kind of just talk and it can be very vague. But in coaching, one of the things that differentiates coaching from therapy is the structure of a session. And that structure involves a clear outcome. So what is it we're going to get out of this session? What do you want to get out of the session? What do we need to address in order to get that outcome? Tell me about this thing, this focus area. Let's get very clear about what we're doing in the space today. That's one of our responsibilities as a coach, to create that structure with them, to co-create that structure is what the ICF say. Which of those feels most important for us to discuss today? If they carry on going vague, I may then contract with them and remind them of the coaching contract and say, as you know, as in this coaching space, this is about us creating a structure for you to do your thinking within. So as I say that to you, what's coming up for you? Is that something you'd like to stay, or would you like to keep it more sort of vague? So really handing it over to the client. It's not to you to lead the client, but you do need to notice if they're doing that. That's your responsibility.
Yeah, what I hear is you simply ask. You ask solution-focused questions. How would an ideal outcome look like? Or maybe where is it working already? How could you get even more of that? So you're saying, as a coach, the client leads. At the same time, we want to have sort of an outcome. It's more, we want more structure than we have possibly in therapy.
Yeah.
And to co-create that structure, you simply ask the client what they want.
Yeah. But when I'm talking about an outcome, I'm talking about the outcomes of the session. So what do you want to go away with today? Not the overarching goal, which might be something like, I want a career vision. Okay, we know you want a career vision. That's your overarching goal. But what do you want to get out of this session?
How would you know this session was useful to you?
You walk away today and you feel like that was an amazing session and it was really successful. What will be different at the end if that's the case? What shift?
Can I interrupt my client?
Yes. Sometimes interruptions are necessary. So I think as new coaches, we worry about interrupting the client's flow of their thinking. And so you could have an unproductive interruption and a productive interruption, I would say. So an unproductive interruption would be when it's coach-led. So maybe you're getting a bit bored, or you're like, you've got an agenda and you want to interrupt and kind of guide the conversation. That would not, you don't want to be doing that. But a productive interruption would be, for instance, a client is you sense. So in coaching, one of our responsibilities, again, one of the goals of coaching is to generate new thinking, is to evoke awareness, and generate new thinking. If you're sensing that the client is talking about old stories, old narratives, stuff that they maybe told you before in previous sessions, or that they're so emotionally disconnected from what they're saying that it's almost like they're just reeling it off, that's an opportunity to interrupt. You want new thinking. That's the important thing. What you're telling me now, you've told me before. So I just want to make sure, is this a useful direction for the conversation, or would you rather go in a different direction? And if they say, actually, I want to carry on, you go, okay, fine. But at least you've noticed it, right? So that would be a good interruption.
Yeah, I can offer an example, actually, that comes to my mind from my coaching and therapy experience, is this sort of, as a client, I often have the feeling I want to get the whole story across. Mm-hmm. So the coach really understands where I'm at and what I'm talking about. And I would say most times that's not needed. I have my story. And for my outcome as a client, it's most of the times not super crucial that the coach knows all the details.
Yeah.
And so there, I think it might be fine to say as a coach, can I stop you there for a minute and try to get in a nutshell what is really behind what all this chatter is about, what's really behind the story, what's the outcome, the goal that the client would want to achieve there.
Yeah, that is absolutely another example of where it would be good to interrupt. Are the client's words serving them or the coach? Because if they're serving the coach, they shouldn't be saying it. So because it's basically wasting thinking time because they've already had these thoughts, right? So yeah, you're right. I will often interrupt people and say, hang on, can I just check? Do you need to tell me this? Are you getting something out of this by telling me? Or are you doing this for my benefit? Because if it's for my benefit, you don't need to tell me. We just need to understand what you want to get out of the session and then go from there.
Related to that, possibly, I heard there's directive and non-directive coaching.
Yeah.
What's the difference and when should I do which?
Yeah. So I call non-directed coaching pure coaching. So that's ICF, International Coaching Federation type coaching. So that is where the client comes to a session and we believe that client is creative, resourceful and whole. Everything that client needs is within them. There is nothing that I could say that will be better than their own thinking. Okay, so that's non-directive coaching. And that's super powerful. It really is. And then there's directive coaching, which is more guided. So that might be like a program that you've created as a coach that you take people through, and it might have different exercises and assessments, and you're sort of directing them in a certain direction. And the extreme of that would be like mentoring and then further teaching. So you can have directed coaching, which is a mix of kind of coaching and a bit of mentoring and a bit of sharing of ideas and things like that. But then you've got like mentoring and then you've got teaching at the other end of the spectrum. Right at the other end of the spectrum is coaching, pure coaching. When should you use them? It's all dependent on the client. So what they need, what they want.
What is supervision?
What is supervision? So supervision is a very, in my opinion, necessary and ethical space to have as a coach, where you are with an experienced coach who is also ideally a trained supervisor. And it could be one-to-one or in a group. And it's basically a space that you go to for your self-care. So say you've got something going on personally that's maybe interrupting the way you're showing up as a coach that you want to talk through. Or it could be a client issue that you're having. So say your sister is very ill at the moment and you're finding it, really hard to deal with that. And then your client comes along and says, my sister's really ill and it's the same condition. You might feel a little bit triggered by that. You might feel like you're polluting the space. You might just want a space to chat it through. So it's for that, really. So it's kind of looking after the coach's well-being, making sure that the coach has somebody to bounce ideas, is like have a sounding board and even get some advice from as well. The supervisor can advise as well in that space. But it's more than coaching. It's more than having a coach. It's like somebody who's very experienced that you can go to that sort of nurturing, I suppose. Mm-hmm.
So it's sort of coaching for a coach, but it's more than coaching. It really has some aspect of mentorship or consulting also in there, because it's so much focus on the coaching profession and also getting concrete feedback possibly.
Exactly. Yeah. So you don't feel as alone with it all. And if you have it in group supervision, then obviously you can learn from other people's issues and things coming up. So that can be a really good space to learn and grow. Mine is a therapist and a coach. So I've chosen her specifically so that I have that with the space, depending on what I need.
Yeah, I also have a Making of a Coach podcast episode specifically about supervision. A coach who has made that her core profession now because she believes so much in it, also as a remedy to loneliness in your journey, in your business, in your practice as a coach.
Yeah, I agree with that. It can be very lonely.
Should I get accredited by some coaching body like the ICF or EMCC?
I think it depends on how you feel about those sort of regulations, how much you need them, what you're going to get out of it, but also from a business perspective, how much is it going to add value to your offering in the world? I know that since there was a big coaching boom around lockdown, around COVID, that more companies are asking for accreditation. So whereas before COVID, it wasn't as important, I think the importance of it has gone up, the demand for it has gone up. So that's something to factor in as well, that you're actually standing out a bit in the market if you're accredited. Therefore, you're more likely to get jobs.
And who cares about the accreditation? So what are characteristics of my target group when you would say, in this case, it actually makes sense to get accreditation?
Corporates, but then having said that, sometimes they don't. There isn't actually a characteristic as the person who needs accreditation. I've noticed there's been a boom in coaching platforms, Coach Hub and Better Up and Thrive and all these. They require accreditation. And many of them require a minimum of 500 hours of coaching as well. They're getting more strict about who they take on as freelance coaches. But yeah, there are some corporates that don't care about it and there are others that do. Yeah.
Yeah. I also heard that before. We have an episode with Ebony, who has been a coach for 20 years. And then she got ICF accreditation because she sort of was tired of marketing and wanted to really scale this work with coaching platforms like Milo Health, Better Coach, Coach Hub, etc. And for that, she finally did accredited.
Yeah, exactly. And for the record, I'm quite a big fan of accreditation. I think it's a really good thing. So I think these days can call themselves a coach. And I think it sort of muddies the profession because then nobody really knows what coaching is.
Yeah.
Whereas if you have a regulatory body that says, well, this is what coaching is, this is the best practice of coaching, at least everybody knows what that bar is. And then people can make informed decisions about whether to work with those people or not. So I think it's a really good thing.
Which body do you recommend to go to?
Any of them. I think they're all great. ICF, EMCC, Association for Coaching are the three that I know of in Europe. And they're all slightly different in what they prioritize, but they're all brilliant. If you want to work in the USA, if you want to work in the States, you might want to go with the ICF because they are primarily American, although they are worldwide. But essentially, if you go with them, you're covering all countries. Whereas if you go with the EMCC, it's a European body. So there may be, I'm not saying there are, but there may be companies that would say, well, you need to be ICF accredited, not EMCC. So that's just something to bear in mind.
Mm-hmm. Coming to the end of our coach trainer FAQ,
okay.
What is a question that you believe aspiring coaches should you ask more, even though they don't? Are there any blind spots that you commonly see that people should better be asking about?
Yeah, the only thing I would say is just be cautious about leaving your job and just going into coaching. That you really don't believe the hype out there that you can just magically create a coaching business. It really does take time to build. So the blind spot, I think, would be to sort of blindly optimistic, to do your research. Yeah.
And maybe also the power of getting started as a side hustle.
Yes. Great idea. I wish I'd done that. Yeah. I just launched myself right in. But yeah, that is a good idea. Yeah. Just do it slowly and then build it up and then reduce. Yeah. Great idea. Yeah. You win the lottery and then of course you can just go and launch yourself.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lucy, I think this was a fun session.
Yeah.
This is where we stop the episode for today and finish the questions that Lucy usually gets asked in her role as a coach trainer. You heard it towards the end. Lucy did not start her own coaching practice as a side hustle. So how exactly did she do it? How do the pillars of her business look like today? I can already tell you there's a reason Lucy talked to us today about the distinction between non-directive ICF-aligned coaching on the one hand and directive coaching on the other. This sort of non-directive coaching makes up a big pillar of her own practice today that she developed On the one hand, coming from her own personal story, and on the other, from her non-directive coaching practice. How exactly this looks like is what we are going to unpack on our next episode. It's going to be a very illustrative example of how this business building, coaching practice building can look like. And you're going to see it here on the Making of a Coach 2 weeks from today. I hope today's session with Lucy was useful for you. If it was, please share it with a friend, leave a rating, and tune in next time. I'm Tobi from MetaFox. I say all the best and bye-bye.
I'll make it as a coach, light the spark inside, empower every soul to turn the tide. I'll make it as a coach, help others grow, changing lives with every story I know.